wise words myself once said, I have a hobby, and that is crafting. Now, how do you craft? That's the thing. It's pretty simple, actually. Just take random stuff that you find around the house and make something cool with it. First, my favorite form of crafting is cardboard crafting because of just I can just do it so easily. All you need for this is a pair of glue and scissors. But the thing is it? But I'm gonna ask three questions about all of these things, at least three basic ones that I've seen all over the internet. And those three things: is it accessible? Is it cheap? Or like expensive or something, and is it easy to do? Now, cardboard, it's definitely accessible. You probably have a lot of boxes of laying around your house and stuff, especially in the time of bad things, and also glue guns and scissors are pretty cheap. You can find them at every store, so they are accessible and they are cheap, but it's a little more difficult than say clay or other things. This takes a lot of skill for some things because mastering shapes is one of them because sometimes you need to get good shapes and cardboard is finicky, and that's another reason why it's a little bit more difficult. But there is some tips and tricks I'm gonna show you, which I'm gonna do for all of them later in this video. Second off, we got clay making. Clay making is really easy for me, at least. I don't know if it's like a thing, but it's really easy because for me, at least, it's just you take things, put it on things, sculpt it, then throw it in the oven. For some clays, at least. And speaking of, clays are a little bit expensive because, and you mostly have to get the individual packets because it's kind of hard to buy clay in bulk, especially colored clay. But normal plain clay, it's nice. But another thing is, you definitely want to get some tools for it. So it's a little bit, it's definitely accessible because it's a form of crafting that everybody likes. And so yeah, it's accessible. A little basic probably for its cheapness, and pretty easy. Put stuff together. And there you. I don't know if this counts as a form of crafting for clay and stuff, but there's also 3D model, which goes into more expensive territory because you have to have computer software, which most of it you have to pay for. And then to actually make it into real things, you're gonna need a 3D printer, and those are the top-notch things. And there's multiple of them, so they are very accessible. It's just they're not cheap, and also since you gotta use like a mouse and keyboard, and who knows, you could probably use a drawing pad or something, but it's not the best, so I wouldn't exactly start with it. But there is 3D pens, which is a completely different territory for. It's not like exactly 3D modeling. It's more of like drawing in 3Ds, like how, and also like you have to do shapes like cardboard. So it's basically cardboard crafting on another level, but who knows? So now, and this is the most easiest one for me to do, and mostly part of my works. But hey, I like this more because there's just something about making cardboard. Now, there is something that I'm not the most talented at, and that's plushie making. I can still make sort of good stuff, but uh, I'm not the best at it. There's just something always off about my plushies, but I mean, felt is super cheap. I got a big pack for you can get like a long sheet for like 75 cents or something, and it's kind of easy if it's kind of like cardboard. You gotta know shapes and how they work, and but yeah, and the accessibility. It's another one of those things. These are basic craftings. You're gonna find them everywhere. That's probably why. But and now into the more in-depth stuff, like how you can make crazy shapes by using tools with cardboard. If you take a piece of cardboard and a tool and give me a second, and score lines on it, kind of like, just don't make them too wide. First of all, this makes it more easier to bend, so you can get if you needed like a curve or something, and it will also make you have good circles. A compass also comes in really handy, the one that where you just go makes a perfect circle. And another thing, cardboard goes into very in depth with you, and this is basically, there's multiple forms splitting off of these forms. These are just the very basic. If there's prop making, which I'm just going to refer to it as where it is, where you just take something and then add to it or something. But yeah, most cardboard doesn't have a standalone. There's usually more parts to it. And cardboard crafting mostly has the moving parts and stuff. And clay, on the other hand, it's definitely really easy, but there is multiple forms of clay, like cos clay, monster clay, and the basic polymer clay, and then there's air dry clay and the pottery clay. And those all have different ways to do it. I mean, cos clay and monster clay are basically normal forms of clay, but you can get really in depth with the clay, and cos clay does make a different result, and it feels a little different, but overall it's pretty the same. And plushie making can go, if you don't like plushie making, there's another thing where felting, it's basically plushies because they're soft, squishy, cuddable stuff, and it's way more simpler than plushie making, and it is accessible, because I didn't think it was gonna be accessible. I thought this was like only a few people know what this is, but no, it's actually pretty popular in the crafting world. And basically all you do is just stab a needle into it until things do. Also, tips and tricks for plushie making: assume everything. If you want a piece, you're gonna have to make it a couple times larger, because when you add stuff to it, it gets longer and expands, and then loosens, and then loses its shape. And also, when you do the seam lines, they could be pretty thick and lose a couple, like an inch off the thing. That also goes for felting. If you want like really tough plushies and stuff, you're gonna have to have a big poof, because it's very light, and then you're basically compacting it. So when you do compact it, it gets really small. And for clay, buy tools. I don't know really what else to say. And then glue gun. Then for cardboard and the glue gun, this people have many problems with, they have to wait for it to dry. But I've learned a thing where if you turn it on and off every once in a while, you can keep it at a steady temperature so it doesn't get too hot and doesn't get too cold, and you'll still have good seams. It might not be the best thing. Sometimes I like to turn it up all the way for certain types of bondings. But yeah, and if you have a cheap hot glue gun, sometimes it gets really, really dirty. And one of the easiest ways I figured out how to clean off all this gunk, since it's mostly glue and they're stuck on it, you can just turn it up all the way and wear gloves. Or if you're a brave soul, don't wear gloves, and just when it gets hot enough, you can just wipe that glue just straight off and get everything else with it, because the stuff is just mostly sticking to the glue. And